Marcus Johnson's hands slammed against the conference table. "You're rejecting me because I have a daughter." The hiring manager didn't flinch. "We need someone without distractions." 15 interviews. 15 rejections. 6 months of watching his savings disappear while his 7-year-old daughter drew pictures of him in a suit believing her daddy was the smartest man alive. But what happened next would shake this company to its core. Because in exactly 4 hours, these same people who called him unsuitable would be begging him to save everything they'd built. Drop a comment with your city name so I can see how far this story travels. Marcus Johnson had been awake since 4:30 in the morning. Not because he was excited, not because he was nervous, but because his daughter Maya had crawled into his bed at midnight coughing from a cold she'd caught at school, and he'd spent the next 4 hours making sure her fever didn't spike. Now standing in front of his bathroom mirror at 6:15 a.m., Marcus studied the face looking back at him. 35 years old, dark circles under his eyes, a few more gray hairs than he remembered seeing last month. "Daddy?" Maya's small voice came from the doorway. She was wrapped in her favorite purple blanket, the one her mother had bought before she walked out on them 5 years ago. "Hey, baby girl, you should be sleeping." "I can't sleep. My throat hurts." Marcus knelt down and pressed his palm against her forehead. Still warm, but better than last night. "I know it hurts, sweetheart. Mrs. Patterson is going to pick you up for school today, remember? She'll give you some honey tea." "But I want you to take me." Marcus felt that familiar knife twist in his chest. The one that came every time he couldn't be the father Maya deserved. "Daddy has a very important meeting today. Remember what I told you?" Maya nodded slowly. "You're going to get a job so we can stay in our apartment." "That's right. And then we can get a dog." Marcus laughed, despite everything. They'd been having this conversation for months. "Let's start with keeping the apartment first, okay?" Maya reached into her blanket and pulled out a piece of construction paper folded in half. "I made this for you. For good luck." Marcus took the card and opened it. Inside, Maya had drawn a picture of him in a blue suit, standing next to a tall building. Above his head, she'd written in wobbly letters, "My daddy is the best." His throat tightened. "It's beautiful, baby. Do you like the building that's where you're going to work? I made it really tall because you're going to have a really important job." Marcus pulled his daughter into a hug, careful not to squeeze too hard. She was so small, so trusting. She had no idea that this was his 15th interview in 6 months. She didn't know that their savings account had dropped below $1,000. She didn't understand that if this interview didn't work out, they might lose everything. "I love it," he whispered. "I'm going to keep it in my pocket the whole time." "Promise?" "Promise." Mrs. Rodriguez arrived at 7:30, just like she did every morning. Marcus had an interview. She was 63 years old, a retired school teacher who lived 2 doors down, and she had become something like a grandmother to Maya over the past 6 months. "How's our little patient?" she asked, stepping inside with a container of homemade chicken soup. "Better. Her fever broke around 5. Mrs. Rodriguez studied Marcus's face with the knowing eyes of someone who had raised 4 children of her own. "And how are you?" "I'm fine." "Marcus," he sighed. "I'm tired, Mrs. Rodriguez. I'm really tired." She set down the soup and placed both hands on his shoulders. "Listen to me. You are a good father. You are a smart man. Any company would be lucky to have you." 14 companies didn't seem to think so. Then they were fools. And this company today, if they're smart, they'll see what I see. Marcus wanted to believe her. But 6 months of rejection had worn down his confidence like water against stone. Every interview started the same way. They'd look at his resume. They'd be impressed by his 8 years at Data Tech Systems. They'd ask about his experience, his skills, his achievements. And then they'd ask about his personal life. The moment he mentioned Maya, something changed. Their smiles became polite masks. Their questions became probing. Their interest became skepticism. Being a single parent is hard, one interviewer had said. How do we know you'll be committed to the job? We need someone who can work late without restrictions, another had explained. Family obligations can be problematic. A third had suggested, 14 times, 14 different ways of saying the same thing. You're not what we're looking for. The drive to TechFlow Solutions took 45 minutes through morning traffic. Marcus used the time to rehearse his answers just like he had for every other interview. Tell me about your experience at Data Tech Systems. I worked there for 8 years as a senior software engineer. I specialized in database management and system optimization. I developed several programs that improved efficiency by 30%. Why did you leave? The company was acquired and operations moved to Chicago. I chose to stay because of personal commitments. This was where it always got complicated. Personal commitments. Those two words had become a code phrase that ended his chances before they even began. Marcus pulled into the TechFlow parking lot at 8:25 a.m. The building was impressive, glass and steel 12 stories tall with the company logo gleaming in the morning sun. This was exactly the kind of place where he wanted to work. He checked his reflection in the rearview mirror one more time. His suit was 10 years old, but still looked professional. His tie was slightly crooked. He fixed it. In his pocket, he felt the outline of Maya's good luck card. Okay, he said to himself. One more time. Let's do this. So, the lobby was everything Marcus expected. Polished floors, modern furniture, young employees in expensive clothes walking quickly from one place to another, all of them looking important and successful. Marcus felt out of place immediately. Good morning, sir. How can I help you? The receptionist was young, probably mid-20s, with a practiced smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. I have an interview at 9. My name is Marcus Johnson. She typed something into her computer. Yes, Mr. Johnson. Please have a seat. Someone will be with you shortly. Marcus sat in one of the leather chairs and tried to look calm. Around him, the lobby buzzed with activity. Phones ringing. People talking. The constant hum of a successful company going about its business. He thought about Maya probably getting ready for school right now. Mrs. Rodriguez would make sure she ate breakfast. She'd check her temperature one more time. She'd walk her to the bus stop and wait until Maya was safely on board. His daughter was in good hands. Now, he just needed to focus. At 8:55, a woman in a sharp gray suit approached him. Mr. Johnson, I'm Ms. Davis, the hiring manager. Please follow me. She was tall, probably mid-40s, with short brown hair and the kind of expression that gave nothing away. Marcus followed her through a corridor lined with offices trying to read her body language for any clue about how this might go. They entered a conference room where 2 other people were waiting. Ms. Davis introduced them as Mr. Johnson from the technical department and Ms. Chen from human resources. Marcus shook hands with everyone and sat down across from them. The interview began. Oh, your resume is impressive, Mr. Johnson. Ms. Chen was looking at his credentials with what seemed like genuine interest. 8 years at Data Tech Systems. Senior software engineer. Multiple commendations for innovative solutions. Thank you. Can you tell us about your most significant achievement there? Marcus relaxed slightly. This was territory he knew well. In my 6th year, we experienced a major database corruption that threatened to erase 3 years of customer records. Our IT team worked for 2 days without finding a solution. I developed a recovery protocol that not only restored all the data, but also created a new backup system that prevented similar incidents. Mr. Johnson leaned forward. How long did it take you to solve the problem? 4 hours. The key was recognizing that the corruption wasn't random. It followed a pattern that pointed to a specific failure in our indexing system. Impressive. Mr. Johnson made a note. What about your system optimization work? Your resume mentions a 30% efficiency improvement. Yes, I analyzed our data processing workflows and identified several redundancies. By restructuring how our systems communicated with each other, I was able to significantly reduce processing time. The interview continued, technical question after technical question. Marcus answered them all confidently, drawing on 8 years of experience and countless solved problems. He could feel the panel warming up to him. Then Ms. Davis looked up from her notes. Mr. Johnson, I see there's a 6-month gap in your employment history. Can you explain that? Here it comes, Marcus thought. The question that ended everything. Datatech was acquired by a larger corporation. They decided to move all operations to Chicago. And you didn't want to relocate? I couldn't relocate. I have personal commitments here. Ms. Chen's pen stopped moving. Personal commitments. Marcus took a breath. He'd tried lying about this once. He'd tried being vague. Neither approach had worked. At this point, he'd decided that honesty was the only option. I'm a single father. My daughter is 7 years old. She's settled in her school, she has friends, and I didn't want to uproot her life for a job. The temperature in the room changed. Marcus could feel it. The 3 interviewers exchanged glances, and in that brief moment of eye contact, something was communicated. I see, Ms. Davis said slowly. A single father. Yes. And the mother? Marcus's jaw tightened. She's not in the picture. It's been 5 years. Mr. Johnson set down his pen. Mr. Johnson, let me be direct. This position requires significant commitment. Long hours. Weekend work during project deadlines. How would you handle those demands with a child at home? I have reliable childcare arrangements. My neighbor is retired and has been helping me for years. Maya is also in an after-school program. I can be flexible when the job requires it. But surely there are limits to that flexibility, Ms. Chen suggested. What if we need you for an emergency at 2 a.m.? What if we need you to fly across the country with 1 day's notice? I would make it work. I always have. Ms. Davis leaned back in her chair. Mr. Johnson, we appreciate your honesty. But I think we need to be honest with you as well. Marcus waited. This is a demanding position. We need someone who can be fully committed to the company's needs. Someone without external obligations that might interfere with their professional responsibilities. With respect, Ms. Davis, my external obligations don't interfere with my professional responsibilities. If anything, they make me more responsible, more motivated. I have someone depending on me, which means I work harder than anyone. I'm sure you believe that. Marcus felt his patience slipping. It's not a belief, it's a fact. I spent 8 years at Datatech proving it. My references will confirm it. My performance reviews. Your previous employer didn't have the same expectations we do. You don't know what expectations they had. Ms. Davis's expression cooled. Mr. Johnson, there's no need to become defensive. I'm not defensive. I'm stating facts. You're suggesting that being a parent makes me less capable of doing this job. That's not true. The room went silent. Mr. Johnson cleared his throat. I think what Ms. Davis is trying to say is that we have certain realities that need to be considered. What realities are those? No one answered. Marcus looked at the 3 faces across the table. They weren't even trying to hide it anymore. Their minds had been made up the moment he said the words, single father. Let me ask you something, Marcus said quietly. If I were married and my wife stayed home with my daughter, would we be having this conversation? Ms. Chen shifted uncomfortably. Or if I were a woman who mentioned having children, would you be questioning my commitment? Mr. Johnson, Ms. Davis started. No, I've been through this 14 times now. 14 interviews where everything was going fine until I mentioned Maya. And every single time I get the same questions, the same concerns, the same rejection wrapped up in polite words about company needs and commitment levels. Marcus stood up. I am one of the best software engineers you will ever interview. I have skills that most of your employees would need years to develop, and you're going to pass on me because I have a 7-year-old daughter who needs her father." He gathered his folder and walked toward the door. "Mr. Johnson, please wait." Ms. Davis's voice had a slight edge now. "Let's not end things this way." Marcus turned back. "How would you like to end things? With another polite smile and a promise to call that we both know is meaningless. We will certainly consider all candidates carefully." "Of course you will." Marcus walked out without looking back. The lobby was still busy, still full of successful-looking people going about their important business. Marcus walked through it like a ghost, invisible to everyone around him. He'd blown it. He knew that. He should have stayed calm. He should have answered their questions with a smile and let them reject him politely. Instead, he'd confronted them. He'd made them uncomfortable. Not that it would have mattered. They were going to reject him anyway. Outside, the morning sun felt too bright, too cheerful. Marcus walked to his car, an old Honda Civic with 180,000 miles on it, and sat behind the wheel without starting the engine. 15 interviews, 15 rejections. He pulled Maya's card from his pocket and looked at it again. The drawing of him in his blue suit. The tall building. The words in wobbly letters. "My daddy is the best." Marcus pressed the card against his chest and closed his eyes. What was he going to tell her? How many more times could he come home with excuses and explanations and promises that everything would be okay? She was 7 years old. She trusted him completely. She believed he could do anything, and he was failing her. His phone buzzed. A text from Mrs. Rodriguez. "Maya wanted me to tell you she's feeling better. She says she knows you got the job because you're the smartest daddy in the world." Marcus stared at the message until his vision blurred. Then his phone buzzed again. A different notification. An email. He opened it automatically, expecting the usual automated rejection. "Thank you for your interest, but we've decided to pursue other candidates." But this one was different. It was from a company he'd applied to 3 weeks ago. "Dear Mr. Johnson, after careful consideration, we have decided to move forward with other candidates. We wish you the best in your job search." 16 rejections. Marcus let out a long breath and put his phone away. He needed to get out of here. He needed to pick up Maya from school in a few hours and figure out how to pretend everything was fine. He reached for the ignition. And then he noticed something strange. Inside the TechFlow building, people were running. Marcus froze with his hand on the key, watching the chaos unfold through the floor-to-ceiling glass windows. Employees were rushing from one end of the lobby to another. Some were gathered around computer screens, pointing and gesturing frantically. Others were on phones, their faces tight with urgency. A man in an expensive suit, clearly an executive, burst out of an elevator and started shouting at people. Even from outside, Marcus could see the panic in his body language. Something was very, very wrong. Marcus watched as more people flooded into the lobby. They came from every direction, carrying laptops and equipment, all of them converging on what looked like a central crisis. The executive in the expensive suit was now surrounded by a growing crowd, all of them talking at once. A van pulled into the parking lot. The logo on the side read, "Data Core Technical Solutions." 2 men in matching polo shirts jumped out and rushed into the building carrying heavy equipment cases. Then another van arrived. Different company, same urgency. Then another. Within 10 minutes, Marcus counted 5 different consultant teams entering TechFlow Solutions, all of them with the hurried purpose of people called in for an emergency. He should leave. This wasn't his problem. These were the same people who had just told him he wasn't good enough to work here. But something kept him in his seat. Professional curiosity, maybe. Or perhaps something darker. The satisfaction of watching people who had dismissed him now struggling with problems they couldn't solve. His phone rang. "Mrs. Rodriguez." "Marcus, how did it go?" "Not good, same as always." "Oh, Marcus, I'm sorry." It's fine. I'm used to it now. What are you going to do? Marcus watched another consultant team rush into the building. I don't know, Mrs. Rodriguez. I really don't know. Come home. I'll make you lunch. Maya made you something at school today. Something for when you got the job. That familiar knife twisted again. I'll be there soon. I just need a few minutes. After hanging up, Marcus sat in his car and continued to watch the unfolding crisis. Whatever was happening inside TechFlow Solutions, it was serious. The kind of serious that brought in expensive specialists and caused executives to lose their composure in public. A news van pulled up across the street. A reporter and cameraman jumped out and started setting up their equipment. This was becoming public. Whatever TechFlow's problem was, it was big enough to attract media attention. Marcus should have felt vindicated. An hour ago, these people had told him he wasn't committed enough, wasn't dedicated enough, wasn't available enough to work here. Now, they were in crisis mode paying consultant fees that probably exceeded his entire annual salary at DataTech. But he didn't feel vindicated. He felt something else. He felt the familiar itch of a problem that needed solving. 8 years of experience had trained him to recognize system failures. The pattern of chaos inside the building, the number of technical specialists being called in the way everyone was focused on computer screens. This looked like a major database failure, the kind of cascading system crash that could bring a company to its knees. Marcus had solved problems like this before. At DataTech, they'd called him the cleaner because he had a talent for finding simple solutions to complex failures. While other engineers got lost in complicated theories, Marcus could usually trace the problem back to a single point of failure that everyone else had overlooked. He thought about the executive he'd seen earlier, the one in the expensive suit. That man was probably the CEO. And right now, that CEO was watching his company fall apart while a parade of consultants failed to fix it. The same company that had rejected Marcus an hour ago. He should leave. He should go home to Maya and start planning his next move. There were other companies, other interviews, other chances. But he didn't leave. Instead, Marcus sat in his car and watched and wondered if the solution to TechFlow's problem might be simpler than anyone imagined. And somewhere in the back of his mind, a crazy thought was forming. What if this crisis was actually an opportunity? What if the very skills they had rejected were exactly what they needed right now? Marcus looked at Maya's card one more time. My daddy is the best. Maybe it was time to prove it. Marcus sat in his car for another 20 minutes, watching the situation inside TechFlow Solutions grow worse by the minute. The lobby had become a war room. Computer stations were set up everywhere, cables snaking across the polished marble floors. At least 60 people were now crowded into the space, most of them wearing the logos of various consulting firms. They were typing frantically, talking on phones, arguing with each other, and none of them seemed to be making any progress. Marcus recognized the signs, the frustrated gestures, the repeated rebooting of systems, the way people kept trying the same solutions over and over, hoping for different results. Whatever had crashed their systems, these experts hadn't found the source yet. His phone buzzed again, a text from Maya's school. Mr. Johnson just wanted to let you know Maya is feeling much better. She ate all her lunch and is excited to show you her art project when you pick her up. Marcus smiled despite everything. Maya was resilient. She'd inherited that from him, he supposed. Or maybe she'd developed it because life had forced her to. He was about to start the car when he saw the CEO again. The man had emerged from the crowd near the elevators and was now standing in the center of the lobby, surrounded by what looked like his executive team. Even from 50 feet away, Marcus could see the tension in his posture. His hands were clenched at his sides. His face was red. And then the CEO did something that made Marcus pause. He threw his phone. The device sailed across the lobby and shattered against a marble pillar. Everyone nearby froze. The CEO stood there chest heaving, and for a moment, the entire lobby went silent. Then the chaos resumed, even more frantic than before. Marcus had seen executives under pressure. He'd watched his own CEO at Datatech handle crisis situations with varying degrees of grace. But he'd never seen anyone lose control like that in front of their entire staff. Whatever was happening, it was bad. Really bad. He checked his watch. 12:45 p.m. He had less than 3 hours before he needed to pick up Maya. Plenty of time to go home, have lunch with Mrs. Rodriguez, and try to forget about this miserable morning. That's what he should do. That's what any reasonable person would do. Instead, Marcus found himself opening his car door and stepping out into the parking lot. He didn't know exactly what he was planning to do. Part of him just wanted a closer look at the crisis unfolding inside. Professional curiosity, he told himself. Nothing more. But another part of him, the part that had spent 8 years solving problems everyone else had given up on, was already running scenarios in his mind. Database failure, system cascade, network corruption. He'd seen all of these before. He'd fixed all of these before. Marcus walked toward the building, his heart beating faster with each step. This was stupid. These people had just rejected him. They'd told him he wasn't good enough. They'd questioned his commitment, his availability, his worth as an employee. And now he was going to offer to help them. Yes, because that's who he was. Not because he wanted to prove something to them, but because he wanted to prove something to himself. And to Maya. My daddy is the best. Marcus pushed through the revolving door and entered the chaos. The noise hit him immediately. Dozens of voices talking over each other. Phones ringing constantly. The hum of computer equipment pushed to its limits. The smell of stress sweat and stale coffee filled the air. No one noticed him at first. Everyone was too focused on their screens, their phones, their failing attempts to solve whatever had gone wrong. Marcus moved through the crowd, listening to fragments of conversation. The primary database is completely inaccessible. We've tried restoring from backup 3 times. It keeps corrupting during the transfer. The customer records are gone, all of them. 7 years of data. Mr. Roberts is going to have our heads if we don't fix this in the next hour. Marcus's ears perked up at that last comment. Mr. Roberts? That must be the CEO. The man who had thrown his phone across the lobby. He kept moving, piecing together the situation from what he heard. It was a database failure just as he'd suspected, but not a simple one. Something had corrupted their primary customer database, and every attempt to restore it was making things worse. Classic cascade failure. Marcus had seen this exact pattern before. At Datatech 3 years ago, they'd experienced something similar. The entire engineering team had worked for 2 days trying complex solutions, rebuilding systems from scratch, implementing elaborate recovery protocols. Marcus had fixed it in 4 hours by finding a single corrupted index file that was poisoning every restore attempt. Could it be that simple here? He needed to get closer. He needed to see their error logs, understand their system architecture, identify the point of failure. But he was just a stranger in a suit. No badge, no authorization, no reason to be here. Excuse me, sir. Marcus turned. A security guard was approaching him, hand raised. Can I help you? I was here earlier for an interview. I just came back to... I'm sorry, sir, but the building is in lockdown. Only authorized personnel and approved consultants are allowed past the lobby right now. I understand, but I think I might be able to help with your technical problem. The guard looked at him skeptically. Are you with one of the consulting firms? No, I'm a software engineer. I have experience with this type of system failure. Sir, we have over 50 consultants working on this right now. I'm sure they have it under control. Marcus looked past the guard at the chaos behind him. Does that look like under control to you? The guard followed his gaze. His expression flickered with doubt. Look. Marcus said, I'm not asking to access your systems. Just let me talk to someone in charge. 5 minutes. If they're not interested, I'll leave. I can't do that, sir. Mr. Roberts has given strict orders. No unauthorized personnel. Then call him. Tell him that Marcus Johnson is here, the candidate who interviewed this morning, and that I believe I can fix his database problem." The guard hesitated. Behind them, another consultant team rushed past, carrying more equipment that probably cost more per hour than Marcus made in a month. "Please," Marcus said, "what do you have to lose?" The guard studied him for a long moment. Then he reached for his radio. "Control, this is Peterson at the main entrance. I have a gentleman here who says he can help with the system problem. Name is Marcus Johnson. He says he interviewed here this morning." Static. Then a voice. "Hold him there. I'll check with Ms. Davis." Marcus waited. Around him the chaos continued. More consultants arriving. More frustrated conversations. More failed solutions. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. Finally the guard's radio crackled. "Peterson, Ms. Davis says the gentleman should leave the premises. He's not authorized to be here." Marcus felt a flash of anger. Of course. Ms. Davis, the same woman who had questioned his commitment because he had a daughter. Now she was blocking him from helping even as her company burned around her. "Tell Ms. Davis," Marcus started. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. Just tell her that I've solved this exact problem before, at Datatech Systems. I can—" "Sir." The guard's hand moved to his belt where a taser hung. "Please don't make this difficult." Marcus took a deep breath. This was pointless. He'd tried to help, and they'd rejected him again. Story of his life. He was turning to leave when a voice cut through the noise. "Wait!" Marcus and the guard both turned. A young man in his mid-20s was pushing through the crowd toward them. He wore a TechFlow badge and the exhausted expression of someone who had been fighting a losing battle for hours. "You're Marcus Johnson, the one who interviewed this morning." "That's right. I'm Kevin Park, junior systems engineer." He glanced nervously at the guard. "I overheard you say you've dealt with this kind of problem before." "I have, at my previous company." "What kind of failure was it?" "Database cascade triggered by a corrupted index file. The restore attempts kept failing because the backup validation protocols were also compromised." Kevin's eyes widened. That's exactly what seems to be happening here. Every time we try to restore from backup, the corruption spreads to the new files. Because you're not addressing the source. You're treating the symptoms, not the disease. We've tried everything. 5 different consulting teams. They've run every diagnostic, every recovery protocol. Nothing works. Marcus felt that familiar spark of problem-solving ignite in his mind. Have they checked the backup validation files? Not the backups themselves, but the protocols that verify the backups before restoration. Kevin hesitated. I don't think so. Everyone's been focused on the main database and the backup archives. That might be your problem. If the validation files are corrupted, they're telling the system that corrupted data is clean. Every restore attempt just spreads the infection. How do we fix that? You need to bypass the automatic validation, manually delete the corrupted verification files, and force the system to generate new ones from a clean archive point. Then you can restore without the cascade. Kevin stared at him. Nobody suggested that. None of the consultants even mentioned the validation files. Because they're looking for complex solutions to what might be a simple problem. It's human nature. The more money you spend on experts, the more complicated you expect the answer to be. "Sir," the guard stepped forward. "I need you to leave now." "Wait." Kevin turned to the guard. "Peterson, this guy might actually know something. Let me get Mr. Roberts." "Ms. Davis already said." "Ms. Davis isn't the CEO. Let me get Mr. Roberts." Before the guard could respond, Kevin disappeared into the crowd. Marcus waited, heart pounding. This was his chance. If he could just get 5 minutes with the CEO, 5 minutes to explain his theory, he might be able to prove himself. Or he might be escorted out by security and arrested for trespassing. Either way, at least he'd tried. The minutes stretched. Around him, the crisis continued. Marcus listened to the fragments of conversation confirming his suspicions. The consultants were running in circles trying the same failed approaches with minor variations. No one was thinking about the underlying cause. Then the crowd parted and Marcus saw him. Mr. Roberts was striding toward the entrance, Kevin hurrying alongside him. The CEO looked terrible. His expensive suit was wrinkled, his tie loosened, his face pale and sweaty. This was a man watching his empire crumble. Behind them came Ms. Davis looking furious. "Mr. Roberts, I must advise against this," she was saying. "This man has no credentials, no authorization. We can't just let anyone access our systems." 50 consultants have credentials and authorization, and none of them have fixed anything in 4 hours, Roberts snapped. At this point, I'd listen to a suggestion from a janitor if it might work. They reached Marcus. Roberts studied him with bloodshot eyes. "You're the interview candidate from this morning." "Yes, sir." "Ms. Davis tells me you're unsuitable for our company. Something about personal commitments." Marcus glanced at Ms. Davis, who had the grace to look uncomfortable. "I'm a single father," Marcus said evenly. "Apparently that makes me unreliable." Roberts made a sound that might have been a laugh in better circumstances. "Right now, the only unreliable thing in this building is our database. Kevin says you have a theory about what's wrong. I believe your restore attempts are failing because your backup validation protocols are corrupted. The system thinks it's using clean data when it's actually spreading the infection with every recovery attempt. And you know this how? I've seen this exact failure pattern before, at Datatech Systems where I worked for 8 years. We experienced a similar cascade. It took 2 days before I figured out the validation files were the source. Once we bypassed them and generated clean protocols, the restore worked perfectly." Roberts turned to the lead consultant, a man in an expensive suit who had been hovering nearby. "Did your team check the validation protocols?" The consultant shifted uncomfortably. "Sir, we've run comprehensive diagnostics on all primary and secondary systems. The validation protocols are part of the standard architecture, and there's no indication." "Did you check them or not?" "We focused our efforts on the most likely points of failure. The validation system is rarely the source of cascade failures." "Rarely isn't never," Marcus said. Robert stared at Marcus for a long moment. Behind them, phones were ringing constantly. Somewhere, someone was shouting about losing another $1 million in pending transactions. "What exactly would you need to test your theory?" 5 minutes at a terminal connected to your main server. If I'm wrong, you've lost nothing but time. If I'm right, I might be able to fix this. Ms. Davis stepped forward. "Sir, this is highly irregular. We have liability concerns, security protocols. We have a $200 million investor presentation in less than 2 hours. Roberts cut her off. "If we can't access our client database by then, we lose the biggest contract in our company's history. So forgive me if I don't give a damn about protocols right now." He turned back to Marcus. "You have 5 minutes. If you cause any additional damage to our systems, I will have you arrested." "Understood." "Understood." Roberts gestured to Kevin. "Get him set up at one of the diagnostic stations. Full access to the database management systems." "Yes, sir." As Kevin led Marcus through the crowd, Ms. Davis grabbed Robert's arm. "Sir, I have to register my objection. This man—" "Your objection is noted, Ms. Davis. Now let me ask you something. This man that you rejected this morning, why exactly did you turn him down?" "He has a young daughter. We felt that his family obligations would interfere with his commitment to the position." Roberts was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was ice cold. "So you rejected a candidate with 8 years of relevant experience, a track record of solving complex problems and references that I'm now being told are outstanding because he has a child. The position requires someone who can solve problems, which is apparently more than our entire HR department can do." Roberts walked away, leaving Ms. Davis standing alone. Kevin brought Marcus to a workstation near the center of the lobby. Multiple monitors displayed various error messages and system diagnostics. Around them, consultants were still working frantically, casting curious glances at the newcomer. "Here you go," Kevin said, pulling up a chair. "Full access to the database management console. What do you need first?" Marcus sat down and cracked his knuckles. His fingers hovered over the keyboard. 5 minutes to prove himself. 5 minutes to save his future. 5 minutes to show Maya's daddy really was the best. "First, I need to see your system architecture map. Then pull up the backup validation logs from the past 24 hours. Kevin typed rapidly, bringing up the requested information. Marcus studied the screens, his mind shifting into problem-solving mode. The architecture was more complex than data techs, but the underlying principles were the same. Data flowed through defined pathways, checked at specific points, stored according to particular protocols. Somewhere in this digital maze, a single corrupted file was bringing everything down. There. Marcus pointed at a log entry. "See that timestamp, 3:47 a.m. That's when your validation protocol ran its scheduled integrity check." "That's normal," Kevin said. "It runs every night." "Look at the completion code. It's showing successful, but the processing time is wrong. A normal integrity check should take about 12 minutes. This one completed in 47 seconds. Kevin leaned closer. "So it didn't actually run the check." "It tried to run the check, but something interrupted it. The system logged it as complete to avoid triggering an error cascade, but the validation files weren't properly updated. So when the database corrupted and we tried to restore, the validation protocols told the system that corrupted data was clean. Every restore attempt spread the infection deeper into your architecture. Around them, more consultants had stopped working to watch. The lead consultant pushed through the crowd. "This is ridiculous. You can't diagnose a complex system failure from a single log entry." Marcus didn't look up. "Watch me." His fingers flew across the keyboard. He navigated through layers of system architecture, following the trail of the failed validation check. Each step confirmed his theory. The corrupted protocols were hidden deep in the infrastructure, invisible to standard diagnostics, but poisoning every recovery attempt. There it is. Marcus pointed to a directory buried in the system files. 3 validation files, all corrupted, all marked as clean by the automated checking system. The lead consultant pushed forward to see. His face went pale. That's not possible. Our diagnostics should have caught that." "Your diagnostics rely on the validation protocols to identify corrupted files. If the protocols themselves are corrupted, they become invisible to standard detection methods." Roberts had appeared behind them. "Can you fix it?" Marcus turned to face him. "I can try, but I need to bypass your automated recovery systems and run a manual repair. It will take the database offline for about 3 minutes. "It's already offline. I mean completely offline. No access, no monitoring, no automated processes. If I'm wrong about this, you'll lose 3 minutes of your consultant's very expensive time. If I'm right, your systems will be back online in about 5 minutes. Roberts looked at the lead consultant. Well, the man's jaw was tight. "Sir, I can't recommend letting an unauthorized individual run manual commands on your primary infrastructure. The liability alone. I've been paying you $4,000 an hour for the past 4 hours, and you haven't fixed anything. At this point, I'm willing to take the risk." He turned back to Marcus. "Do it." Marcus took a deep breath. This was it. The moment where everything he'd learned in 8 years of experience either paid off or failed spectacularly. He thought of Maya, her good luck card in his pocket, her absolute faith in her daddy. His fingers began to move. First, he shut down the automated recovery processes. Warning messages flashed across the screen, but he dismissed them. Then he navigated to the corrupted validation directory and began the deletion process. The consultants around him were muttering. Some were openly skeptical. Others were watching with growing interest. "Deleting primary validation protocols," Marcus said aloud. "System will attempt to regenerate from archive in approximately 60 seconds. The screens flickered. Error messages appeared and disappeared. For a moment, everything went dark. Then slowly, the monitors began lighting up again. Regeneration complete. Running integrity check on new protocols. Marcus watched the progress bar crawl across the screen. 90%, 95, 100. Protocols verified clean. Initiating database restore from secondary backup. More waiting. More progress bars. More muttered conversations around him. Then Kevin let out a sound that was half gasp, half laugh. "Oh my God, it's working." The screens began showing active data. Customer records, transaction histories, account information, all of it flowing back into the system as if it had never been gone. "Primary database online," Marcus announced. "Running system-wide diagnostic to confirm." The diagnostic took 30 seconds. When it finished, every light on the status board was green. Around him, the lobby erupted. People were cheering, clapping, hugging each other. The consultants who had spent 4 hours failing were staring at their screens in disbelief. Phones began ringing with calls from employees throughout the building, reporting that their systems were back online. Roberts stood behind Marcus, his mouth open. "You did it! You actually did it!" Marcus stood up from the workstation. His hands were shaking slightly from the adrenaline. "The system should be fully operational now. You'll want to run a complete backup with new validation protocols tonight, and I'd recommend having your security team investigate why the original corruption occurred. But your immediate crisis is over." Roberts grabbed Marcus's hand and shook it firmly. 3 minutes. You fixed in 3 minutes what 50 consultants couldn't fix in 4 hours. Sometimes the solution is simpler than people expect. They just need someone to look at the problem from a different angle. The lead consultant stepped forward, his face red with embarrassment and anger. "Sir, I want to point out that this gentleman violated several security protocols. He had no authorization to access those systems. If anything had gone wrong—" "But nothing went wrong," Roberts interrupted. "And your authorized, credentialed team couldn't solve the problem. So maybe it's time to reconsider what kind of authorization really matters." He turned to Ms. Davis, who had been watching from the edge of the crowd. "Ms. Davis, please join me in my office. We need to have a conversation about our hiring practices." Then he turned back to Marcus. "Mr. Johnson, I'd like to speak with you as well. But first, I believe you deserve an apology." Roberts raised his voice so everyone in the lobby could hear. "This man was rejected for a position at our company this morning. He was told he wasn't suitable because he has a young daughter. A single father who was deemed too risky, too unreliable, too uncommitted." He paused, letting the words sink in. "And yet, when our company faced its worst crisis in 15 years, this same man came back. He didn't have to. We had rejected him, insulted him, questioned his dedication. But he came back anyway, because he saw a problem he knew he could solve." Roberts put his hand on Marcus's shoulder. "That's not unreliability. That's integrity. That's professionalism. That's exactly the kind of person we should want working here." The lobby was silent. Everyone was watching. "Mr. Johnson, I would be honored if you would consider joining TechFlow Solutions. Not in the position you interviewed for this morning, that would be beneath your abilities. I want to offer you the role of Senior Systems Architect, reporting directly to me." Marcus felt his heart stop. "Sir, The salary is $110,000 per year, with full benefits including comprehensive health coverage for you and your daughter. You'll have flexible working hours to accommodate your family needs and a $10,000 signing bonus available immediately." Marcus couldn't speak. His throat had closed up. "What do you say, Mr. Johnson? Will you help us make sure this never happens again?" In his pocket, Marcus felt Maya's card. "My daddy is the best." "Yes," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "Yes, I'll take it." The lobby erupted in applause again, even louder than before. And in that moment, Marcus Johnson went from rejected candidate to the hero who had saved everything. The applause continued for what felt like an eternity. Marcus stood in the center of the lobby, surrounded by people who had been strangers an hour ago, trying to process what had just happened. $110,000 a year. Full health benefits. Flexible working hours. It wasn't just a job. It was everything he had been praying for since the day Datatech closed its doors. Roberts shook his hand again, then turned to address the crowd. All right, everyone. We have an investor presentation in 90 minutes. Let's make sure we're ready to show them what TechFlow Solutions is capable of. Mr. Johnson, please come with me. We have paperwork to discuss. Marcus followed Roberts through the crowd, aware of the eyes on him. Some looked grateful. Others looked impressed. A few, particularly the consultants who had failed where he succeeded, looked resentful. He didn't care about any of them. All he could think about was Maya. As they walked toward the elevator, Marcus's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen. Mrs. Rodriguez. Sir, I'm sorry. I need to take this call. It's about my daughter. Roberts nodded. Of course. Take your time. My office is on the 12th floor. Join me when you're ready. Marcus stepped aside and answered the phone. Marcus, is everything okay? You usually call by now. Mrs. Rodriguez. His voice cracked. I got the job. Silence on the other end. Then a sound that might have been a sob. Oh, Marcus. Oh, thank God. I knew it. I knew something good was going to happen. It's more than I ever expected. The salary, the benefits. Maya will have health insurance. Real health insurance. I'm so happy for you. Both of you. Maya is going to be thrilled. Don't tell her yet. I want to surprise her when I pick her up. My lips are sealed. But Marcus, you should know she made something special at school today. A present for when you got the job. She was so certain you would. Marcus closed his eyes. That little girl. Her faith had never wavered, even when his own had crumbled. I'll be there at 3:30, same as always. Take your time, dear. Enjoy this moment. You've earned it. After hanging up, Marcus took a deep breath and headed for the elevator. The doors opened to reveal Kevin Park, the young engineer who had brought him to Roberts's attention. Mr. Johnson, I was hoping to catch you. Marcus, please call me Marcus. Kevin grinned. Marcus, I just wanted to say thank you. What you did in there, I've never seen anything like it. I got lucky. The problem happened to be something I'd seen before. That's not luck. That's experience. And you knew exactly where to look when no one else did. Kevin hesitated. Can I ask you something? Sure. They really rejected you because you have a daughter. Marcus nodded slowly. That's what it came down to. They asked about my availability, my flexibility, my commitment. The moment I mentioned Maya, I could see their interest disappear. Kevin shook his head. That's messed up. My mom raised me and my sister by herself. She worked 2 jobs to put us through school. Single parents are the hardest workers I know. A lot of companies don't see it that way. They see a liability, a risk, someone who might need to leave early for a sick child or miss a meeting for a school event. But you just proved them wrong. You proved that having a family doesn't make you less capable. If anything, it makes you more motivated. The elevator reached the 12th floor. The doors opened to reveal a reception area with a stunning view of the city. Thanks for saying that, Kevin. And thanks for speaking up earlier. If you hadn't gotten Roberts, you would have found another way. I could tell just from talking to you for 30 seconds that you knew what you were doing. They shook hands, and Marcus walked toward Roberts's office. The CEO was waiting for him behind a massive desk cluttered with papers and monitors. He looked different now than he had in the lobby, still tired, still stressed, but with a sense of relief that had been entirely absent before. Close the door, Marcus. Please have a seat. Marcus sat in one of the leather chairs across from the desk. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, he could see the city stretching out below. I meant what I said down there, Roberts began. About the apology. What happened this morning was wrong. The way you were treated was wrong. I appreciate that, sir. Call me James. After what you did today, I think we're past formalities. Roberts leaned back in his chair. I've been running this company for 15 years, built it from nothing. And in all that time, I've never seen a system failure that severe. Our entire customer database was at risk. 7 years of records. Contracts worth hundreds of millions of dollars. The corruption could have spread further if the restore attempts had continued much longer. That's what the consultants told me. They said we might need to rebuild the entire system from scratch. Days of downtime, millions in losses, and they couldn't guarantee they'd even recover all the data. Roberts shook his head slowly. Then you walk in. Someone we'd just rejected. Someone my own HR department had deemed unsuitable, and you fix everything in 3 minutes. I got lucky with the diagnosis. If the problem had been something different— Stop. Roberts held up his hand. Don't diminish what you did. I've spent the last 4 hours watching some of the highest-paid consultants in the industry fail to solve this problem. They had all the credentials, all the certifications, all the fancy equipment, and they couldn't do what you did. He leaned forward. You want to know what the real difference was? They were so focused on complicated solutions that they missed the simple answer. They couldn't see the forest for the trees. But you looked at the problem with fresh eyes and found the root cause in minutes. That's just how my mind works. I've always been good at finding patterns. That's exactly what I need. Someone who can cut through complexity and find solutions. Not just for emergencies like today, but for everything. Our systems, our processes, our strategies. Roberts pulled a folder from his desk. I've already talked to HR. The job offer I made you downstairs is official. But I want you to understand what I'm really asking. Marcus waited. I'm not just hiring you to fix technical problems. I want you to be my problem solver. When something goes wrong anywhere in this company, you'll be the person I call. When we're trying to decide between 2 approaches, you'll help us see which one is really best. When everyone else is panicking, you'll be the calm voice that finds the answer. That's a lot of responsibility. It is, but based on what I saw today, you can handle it. Robert slid the folder across the desk. Take a look at the offer. Let me know if anything needs adjustment. Marcus opened the folder and read through the contract. The numbers were even better than what Roberts had announced publicly. Stock options, annual bonus structure, a signing bonus of $15,000, not 10. You increased the signing bonus. I did. Consider it compensation for the way you were treated this morning, and a demonstration of how seriously I want you on this team. Marcus stared at the numbers. $15,000. That was more than 3 months of his old salary at Datatech. It was enough to pay off his outstanding bills, catch up on rent, and still have money left over for Maya's needs. I don't know what to say. Say yes. And then let's get you set up before the investor presentation. I want you in that room when we show them what TechFlow is capable of. Marcus looked up. You want me in the investor meeting? You're the reason we can have that meeting at all. If the database had stayed down, we would have had to cancel. Our biggest potential contract would have walked out the door. Instead, we're going to show them a company that can handle any crisis. And you're proof of that. Sir James, I just fixed a technical problem. I'm not a salesman. I'm not asking you to sell anything. I'm asking you to be there. To show our investors that TechFlow attracts the best talent. That when we face challenges, we find solutions. Your presence alone sends a message. Marcus thought about it. Part of him wanted to slip quietly into his new role, avoid attention, prove himself through steady work over time. But another part understood what Roberts was offering. This was a chance to cement his position, to show everyone, including the people who had rejected him, that he belonged here. Okay, I'll be there. Roberts smiled. Excellent. Now let's get you signed up before you change your mind. The next hour was a blur of paperwork and introductions. Marcus met the head of IT, a man named Peter Chen, who looked at him with a mixture of awe and professional jealousy. He met the VP of Operations, a woman named Sarah Mitchell, who shook his hand warmly and said she'd heard impressive things. He met a dozen other executives and managers, all of whom seemed to know what he had done in the lobby. The story had spread through the company like wildfire. The outsider who had been rejected in the morning and saved everything by afternoon. The single father who proved that family and professional excellence could coexist. Marcus found himself becoming a symbol whether he wanted to be or not. Through it all, he kept checking his watch. 2:15, 2:30, 2:45. Finally, he found a quiet moment to call Mrs. Rodriguez again. "I'm going to be late picking up Maya. There's a meeting I have to be part of. Can you get her from school?" "Of course. What should I tell her?" "Tell her Daddy has a surprise, a big one, and that I'll be home by 6 at the latest." "She's going to be so excited." "I know. I can barely wait myself." At 3:00, the investor presentation began. The conference room was the largest Marcus had ever seen. A long table stretched down the center, surrounded by leather chairs. At one end, a massive screen displayed the TechFlow logo. At the other end, 3 men in suits sat with expressions of professional skepticism. These were the investors. The people who held the future of the company in their hands. Robert stood at the head of the table, flanked by his executive team. Marcus sat off to the side, trying to be unobtrusive. "Gentlemen, thank you for joining us today," Roberts began. "I know there were some concerns about the technical issues we experienced earlier. I want to address those directly." The lead investor, a silver-haired man named Harrison, leaned forward. "Yes, let's talk about that. We heard you had a major system failure. All your databases went offline. Is that accurate?" "It is. At approximately 8:45 this morning, we experienced a cascading failure in our primary customer database. The problem was significant and widespread." "And how long did it take to resolve?" Roberts smiled. "That's where the story gets interesting. We called in 5 of the top consulting firms in the region. They worked for over 4 hours without success. Their preliminary assessment was that we might need days to fully recover." Harrison frowned. "Days? And you're telling us the system is operational now?" "Completely operational. Every record restored. Every function online. The crisis lasted approximately 4 hours and 15 minutes from start to finish." "How is that possible?" Roberts gestured toward Marcus. "Because we found the right person for the job. Marcus Johnson, would you please stand?" Marcus felt every eye in the room turn toward him. He rose slowly, not sure what he was supposed to do. "Mr. Johnson joined our company today, just this afternoon in fact. He diagnosed the problem that had stumped all our consultants and fixed it in approximately 3 minutes." The investors exchanged glances. 3 minutes, Harrison repeated. "After 4 hours of failure. 3 minutes and 27 seconds to be exact. I watched him do it." Roberts turned to Marcus. "Marcus, would you mind explaining briefly what you found?" Marcus cleared his throat. The failure appeared complex because it was affecting multiple systems simultaneously. The consultants were looking for complex solutions, complete rebuilds, elaborate recovery protocols. But the actual cause was a corrupted set of validation files that had been infected during a routine maintenance check. Every restore attempt was using those corrupted files to verify the backup data, which spread the problem instead of fixing it. "So you found a simple solution that everyone else missed." "I found the root cause. Once you address the source of a problem, the solution often becomes straightforward." Harrison studied Marcus for a long moment. "And you said you just joined the company today?" "Technically, I joined about an hour ago." "Where were you before my data tech systems?" "I was a senior software engineer there for 8 years." "I know data tech. Good company. Solid reputation." Harrison turned to Roberts. "How did you find this gentleman?" Roberts hesitated for just a moment. "Mr. Johnson actually interviewed with us this morning. For a different position. And we initially decided not to offer him the job." The room went very quiet. You rejected him, Harrison asked slowly. Before the crisis. We did. It's something I deeply regret now. So let me understand this. You had a candidate with 8 years of experience at a reputable company, someone capable of solving problems that stump top consultants, and you turned him down. Our HR department had concerns about his availability. Mr. Johnson is a single father. Harrison sat back in his chair. His expression was difficult to read. A single father, and because of that you almost missed out on the person who saved your company today. Roberts nodded slowly. Yes, it's a failure of judgment that we're actively addressing. Good. Harrison's expression softened. Because I'm a single father too. Raised 2 kids on my own after my wife passed. It didn't make me less committed to my work. If anything, it made me more driven to succeed. He looked at Marcus with new respect. Mr. Johnson, I'm impressed. Not just by your technical skills, but by your character. You could have walked away after being rejected. Many people would have. Instead, you came back and helped the company that had turned you down. I saw a problem I knew I could solve. Walking away wasn't an option. That's exactly the kind of person I want working for companies I invest in. Harrison turned to Roberts. James, this presentation was supposed to convince us that TechFlow is ready for our investment. I've seen enough. Roberts tensed. I understand if you need more time to consider. I don't need more time. I'm in. Harrison looked at his colleagues. Gentlemen. The other 2 investors nodded in agreement. The deal is done. Congratulations. The conference room erupted in shocked celebration. Executives who had been sitting rigidly in their chairs were suddenly shaking hands and clapping each other on the back. Roberts looked like he might cry with relief. Marcus stood quietly amid the chaos, not quite believing what had just happened. He had done more than fix a technical problem. He had helped secure the company's future. His presence, his story, had convinced the investors that TechFlow was worth their money. Roberts made his way through the crowd and grabbed Marcus's hand. That was incredible. Harrison was ready to tear us apart for the system failure, and instead, he ended up praising us because of you. I didn't do anything. You're the one who told the story. I told the truth. That's all. Roberts lowered his voice. Listen. I know this has been an overwhelming day. Go home. Be with your daughter. We'll handle the rest of the celebration without you. Are you sure? Positive. You've already done more today than most employees do in a year. Take some time to process everything. I'll see you tomorrow morning at 9. Marcus nodded. Thank you, James, for everything. Thank you, Marcus. You didn't just save our systems today. You might have saved this entire company. Marcus left the conference room and took the elevator down to the lobby. The space was calmer now, most of the consultant equipment already packed up and removed. A few employees recognized him and nodded respectfully as he passed. The security guard from earlier, Peterson, was still at his post near the entrance. Mr. Johnson? Marcus stopped. Yes. I just wanted to apologize. For earlier, I almost prevented you from helping. You were doing your job. No apology needed. Still, Peterson extended his hand. Welcome to TechFlow. I have a feeling you're going to do great things here. Marcus shook his hand and walked out into the afternoon sun. It was 4:30. Maya would be at home with Mrs. Rodriguez by now, probably wondering why her daddy was late. He had so much to tell her, so many things that were about to change for both of them. As he walked to his car, Marcus passed the spot where he had sat that morning, watching the crisis unfold through the glass windows. Just a few hours ago, he had been an unemployed single father with 16 rejections behind him and no hope for the future. Now he had a job that paid more than he'd ever earned, health insurance for his daughter, a chance to prove himself at a company that would value his contributions. All because he'd refused to walk away from a problem. His phone rang. Mrs. Rodriguez. Marcus. How much longer? Maya is getting anxious. She keeps asking when Daddy is coming home. I'm on my way now. 20 minutes, maybe 30 with traffic. She has something she wants to show you. She's been practicing a little speech all afternoon. A speech? About the present she made you. She wanted to have something prepared for when you got home with the good news. Mrs. Rodriguez paused. She was so certain you would get the job. Even when you weren't sure yourself, she never doubted. Marcus felt tears prick at his eyes. I'm coming home, Mrs. Rodriguez. Tell her Daddy is on his way. The drive home felt different than the morning commute. The same streets, the same traffic, the same old car with its familiar problems. But everything had changed. Marcus thought about what Harrison had said, about being a single father himself, about how raising children alone had made him more driven, not less. There were others out there like him, people who understood that family wasn't an obstacle to success, it was a motivation for it. He had spent 6 months feeling ashamed every time he mentioned Maya in an interview. Now he realized that she was his greatest strength. He had to be successful, not just for himself, but for her. That kind of pressure could break some people, but it had pushed Marcus to become better, more efficient, more determined. And today, it had pushed him to walk back into a building that had rejected him because he knew he could help. Maya's faith had never wavered, even when his had. Maybe that was the real lesson of this day. Not that the system was unfair, though it was. Not that hard work eventually paid off, though it had. But that believing in yourself, even when no one else did, could change everything. Marcus pulled into the parking lot of his apartment building. The same cracked pavement, the same faded parking lines, the same modest building that had been their home for 3 years. But it looked different now. It looked like a place they could stay, a place they could afford, a place they could build their lives around at least until something better came along. He climbed the stairs to their second-floor apartment and paused outside the door. Inside, he could hear voices. Mrs. Rodriguez saying something, Maya laughing. Marcus took a deep breath and opened the door. Daddy! Maya launched herself at him before he was fully inside. He caught her and lifted her up, holding her tight against his chest. Hey, baby girl. Daddy, did you get the job Mrs. Rodriguez wouldn't tell me? She said I had to wait for you. Marcus looked at Mrs. Rodriguez, who was watching from the kitchen doorway with tears in her eyes. I got the job, sweetheart. Maya screamed with joy and squeezed him harder. I knew it. I knew you would. You're the smartest daddy in the whole world. Marcus carried her into the apartment and sat down on the couch, still holding her in his lap. Mrs. Rodriguez quietly slipped out the door, giving them privacy for this moment. Daddy, I made you something for getting the job. Can I show you? Of course. Maya scrambled off his lap and ran to her room. She came back carrying a piece of construction paper carefully folded and decorated with stickers and glitter. I made it at school. Mrs. Patterson helped me with the words. She handed him the card. Marcus opened it slowly. Inside, Maya had drawn a picture of the two of them. Marcus in a blue suit, his interview suit. Maya in her favorite purple dress. They were holding hands in front of a big building, and above them was a bright yellow sun. Underneath the picture in carefully written letters were the words, Congratulations, Daddy. I always believed in you. Marcus stared at the card until the words blurred. Do you like it? Maya asked anxiously. I wanted it to be perfect. It is perfect, baby. It's the most perfect thing anyone has ever given me. He pulled her into another hug, and this time he didn't try to hide the tears streaming down his face. Daddy, why are you crying? Because I'm happy, sweetheart. Because you believed in me even when I didn't believe in myself. And because everything is going to be okay now. I know it is. Maya patted his cheek with her small hand. Because you're my daddy, and you can do anything. Marcus held his daughter and let himself feel for the first time in 6 months that she might be right. That night, Marcus couldn't sleep. He lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to Maya's soft breathing from the next room. His mind kept replaying the events of the day. The rejection, the crisis, The moment when his fingers had moved across that keyboard, knowing that everything depended on whether his theory was correct. The alarm clock showed 2:47 a.m. In less than 7 hours, he would start his new job. Senior Systems Architect at TechFlow Solutions, a title he had never imagined holding, a salary he had never expected to earn. And yet the anxiety wouldn't let him rest. What if today had been a fluke? What if the problem had been simpler than he thought, and any competent engineer could have solved it? What if he walked into that building tomorrow and everyone realized that he wasn't special, that he was just lucky imposter syndrome? Marcus recognized it for what it was. But knowing what something was didn't make it go away. He got up quietly and walked to Maya's room. She was curled up in her bed, clutching the stuffed rabbit she'd had since she was a baby. Her cold was almost gone now, just a slight wheeze in her breathing that would clear up in another day or two. Marcus sat down on the edge of her bed and watched her sleep. She had been so happy tonight. He had taken her out for ice cream to celebrate, even though he knew he should be careful with money until his first paycheck arrived. But some moments were worth breaking the rules for. "Daddy, does this mean we can stay in our apartment forever?" She had asked, chocolate ice cream smeared across her chin. "For as long as we want, baby. And I can keep going to my school." "Yes. And we can get a dog." Marcus had laughed. "Let's take it one step at a time." But even as he said it, he was thinking that maybe finally a dog wasn't such an impossible dream. Maybe a lot of things that had seemed impossible were now within reach. He kissed Maya's forehead and went back to bed. Sleep finally came around 4 a.m., fitful and brief. The alarm went off at 6:30. Marcus showered, shaved, and put on his interview suit, the only professional outfit he owned. He would need to buy more clothes soon. The signing bonus would cover it, $15,000. The number still didn't seem real. Mrs. Rodriguez arrived at 7:15 to take Maya to school. "Look at you," she said, beaming. "You look like a new man." "I don't feel like a new man. I feel like someone who's about to walk into a situation he's not prepared for." "Nonsense. You were born for this, Marcus. I've known it since the day you moved in. That brain of yours was meant for bigger things than troubleshooting other people's problems. That's literally what they're paying me to do. Troubleshoot other people's problems. You know what I mean." She straightened his tie. "Go. Make us proud. Maya and I will be waiting to hear all about it tonight." The drive to TechFlow felt different in the morning light. Yesterday he had been an outsider, an intruder, someone who didn't belong. Today he had a badge, a parking space, an office. An office. He hadn't had an office in 8 years. At Datatech, he'd worked in an open floor plan with dozens of other engineers. The idea of having 4 walls and a door felt almost luxurious. Marcus parked in the employee lot, not the visitor section where he'd sat yesterday, and walked toward the building. His badge worked on the first try. The security guard nodded at him respectfully. "Good morning, Mr. Johnson. Welcome to your first day." "Thank you, Peterson. Coffee's free in the break room. The good stuff, not that vending machine garbage." Marcus smiled and headed for the elevator. The 12th floor was quiet this early in the morning. A few executives were already in their offices, visible through glass walls, as they worked on computers or talked on phones. Marcus found his office at the end of a corridor, a modest but comfortable space, with a window overlooking the city. A card sat on his desk. He opened it. "Welcome to the team. Looking forward to working with you, Kevin Park." Marcus smiled. The young engineer had been kind to him from the start. It was good to know he had at least one ally in this place. He spent the first hour exploring his computer systems, learning the network architecture, familiarizing himself with the company's digital infrastructure. Everything was organized and professional, but he could already see areas that needed improvement. Redundancies that slowed things down, security gaps that could cause problems, inefficiencies that were costing the company money. His mind was already cataloging solutions. At 9:15, there was a knock on his door. "Come in." Ms. Davis entered. She looked different than she had yesterday, less confident, more uncertain. She closed the door behind her and stood awkwardly in the center of the room. "Mr. Johnson, I wanted to speak with you." "Please sit down." She took the chair across from his desk. For a moment, neither of them spoke. "I came to apologize," she finally said, "for yesterday, for the interview, for everything." Marcus studied her face. She looked like she hadn't slept much either. "I appreciate that. What I said in that interview room, the things I implied about your commitment, your availability, they were unfair and wrong. I made assumptions based on your personal circumstances instead of evaluating your professional qualifications." "Yes, you did." Ms. Davis flinched at his directness. "I've been doing this job for 15 years. I thought I was good at identifying talent. But yesterday showed me that I have biases I wasn't even aware of." "We all have biases. The question is what we do about them. That's why I'm here. Mr. Roberts and I had a long conversation last night about hiring practices, about the assumptions we make, about how many candidates we might have overlooked because they didn't fit our narrow definition of the ideal employee." Marcus leaned back in his chair. "What did you conclude?" "That we need to change, starting with me." She paused. "Mr. Roberts has asked me to lead an internal review of our hiring processes, to identify where bias has affected our decisions, to create new guidelines that focus on skills and experience rather than assumptions about lifestyle." "That sounds like a positive step." "I wanted you to know that you're part of the reason it's happening. What you did yesterday, not just fixing the system, but confronting us about why you were rejected, it made people uncomfortable, including me. But discomfort can be a catalyst for change." Marcus considered her words. He had every right to be angry at this woman. She had judged him without knowing him. She had nearly cost him this opportunity. But anger wouldn't help anyone now. "Ms. Davis, I appreciate you coming to me directly. That took courage. It was the least I could do. I hope your review makes a real difference. There are a lot of people out there like me. Single parents, caregivers, people with responsibilities outside of work. That doesn't make us less valuable as employees. If anything, it makes us more motivated to succeed. I'm starting to understand that." She stood up. "Thank you for listening. I know you didn't have to. We all deserve second chances. I got mine yesterday. Maybe you're getting yours now." After she left, Marcus sat quietly for a moment. He hadn't expected that conversation. Hadn't expected her to be so direct about her failure. It didn't erase what had happened, but it suggested that maybe some good would come from his experience. At 10:00, his phone rang. James Roberts. "Marcus, how's your first morning treating you?" "Still getting oriented. Lots to learn." "Well, learn quickly. I need you in conference room B in 20 minutes. We have a situation." "What kind of situation?" "The kind that requires your particular talents. I'll explain when you get here." Marcus hung up and grabbed his notebook. So much for a quiet first day. Conference room B was already full when he arrived. Peter Chen, the head of IT, was there. Sarah Mitchell, the VP of Operations. Kevin Park, looking slightly anxious. And 3 other people Marcus hadn't met yet. Robert stood at the head of the table, his expression serious. "Thank you all for coming on short notice. We have a problem." He clicked a remote, and the screen behind him lit up with a series of graphs and charts. "As you know, yesterday's system failure was triggered by a corrupted validation file. Marcus identified the source and fixed the immediate problem. But this morning our security team discovered something concerning." Another click. The screen showed a timeline of network activity. The corruption wasn't accidental. Someone deliberately introduced malicious code into our validation system. This was sabotage. The room went silent. Peter Chen leaned forward. "Are you saying we were hacked?" "It appears so. The code was sophisticated, designed to look like a routine malfunction rather than an attack. If Marcus hadn't traced it to the validation files, we might never have discovered the true cause. "Who would do this?" Sarah Mitchell asked. "A competitor. That's what we need to find out. But there's a more immediate concern." Roberts clicked again. The malicious code wasn't limited to the validation system. Our security team found traces of similar code in other parts of our infrastructure. Dormant for now, but potentially dangerous. Marcus spoke up. "You're saying there might be more attacks coming." "I'm saying someone spent a lot of time and effort planting these digital bombs throughout our system. Yesterday's failure might have just been the first one to detonate." Kevin raised his hand. "Can't we just scan for the code and remove it?" Peter Chen shook his head. "We tried. The code is adaptive. It changes its signature to avoid detection. Traditional security scans don't find it." "So what do we do?" Everyone looked at Roberts. He looked at Marcus. "That's why I called this meeting. Marcus, you found the original corruption when no one else could. I need you to lead the effort to find and eliminate the rest of it." Marcus felt the weight of expectation settle on his shoulders. Yesterday's success had been part skill, part luck. Now they were asking him to repeat it on a larger scale. "I'll need full access to every system in the company, no restrictions." "Done. And I'll need to work with Kevin and Peter's team. I can't do this alone." "Whatever resources you need, this is your operation now." Marcus nodded slowly. "Then let's get started." The next 3 days were the most intense of Marcus's career. He worked 16-hour shifts, coming home only to sleep for a few hours and check on Maya. Rodriguez had stepped up magnificently, taking care of his daughter as if she were her own granddaughter. "Don't worry about us," she said when he apologized for the 100th time. "Maya understands. She's proud of her daddy. I promised I would be more present once I got this job, not less. You're building something important. She knows that. And when this crisis is over, you'll have all the time in the world." But the crisis wasn't ending quickly. Marcus and his team discovered 17 separate instances of malicious code hidden throughout TechFlow's systems. Each one was different. Each one was designed to trigger under specific conditions. It was like diffusing bombs without knowing which wire to cut. On the second day, they found code that would have deleted all customer financial records if triggered. On the third day, they discovered a back door that would have given an outsider complete access to the company's internal communications. Each discovery made the situation more alarming. "This wasn't a random attack," Marcus told Roberts during their evening briefing. "This was planned by someone who knows your systems intimately, someone who had time to study your architecture and plant these devices in exactly the right places. An insider? Possibly. Or someone who used to work here. Someone with detailed knowledge of how TechFlow operates." Roberts's face darkened. "Do you have any suspects?" "Not yet, but I'm keeping a list of everyone who had access to the affected systems. It's not a short list." "Find them, Marcus. Whoever did this, I want them found." On the fourth day, Marcus had a breakthrough. He was reviewing the code signatures of the malicious programs when he noticed a pattern. Each piece of code had a tiny marker, almost invisible, unless you knew what to look for. A digital fingerprint left by the programmer. Marcus recognized the style. He had seen it before. Years ago at DataTech. "Kevin," he called across the room, "pull up everything you can find on external contractors who worked on the database migration 2 years ago." "The migration project, why?" "Because I think I know who did this. And if I'm right, we have a much bigger problem than we thought." Kevin's search revealed what Marcus had feared. The database migration had been handled by a consulting firm called Nexus Solutions. The lead programmer on that project was a man named David Chen. David Chen had also worked at DataTech. He had been fired 6 months before Marcus left, terminated for unauthorized access to confidential systems. At the time, it had seemed like a minor incident. Now Marcus saw it differently. "He's been planning this for years," Marcus said. "He got himself hired as a consultant, gained access to your systems, and planted these time bombs throughout your infrastructure. Then he sat back and waited. Waited for what? For the right moment. Or maybe he just wanted to watch TechFlow suffer. Marcus pulled up David Chen's personnel file from the Datatech records. This guy was smart. Brilliant, actually, but he had a grudge against every company that ever fired him. He thought the world owed him something. Roberts stared at the photo on the screen. You're telling me this man single-handedly sabotaged my company? I'm telling you he tried to, but he made one mistake. What's that? Marcus pointed to the code on his screen. He used the same programming style he developed at Datatech, the same little quirks and signatures. I recognized them because I reviewed his code for 3 years. He couldn't help leaving his fingerprints all over his work. Can you trace him? Find where he is now? That's not my specialty, but I can give your security team everything they need to build a case. And more importantly, I can make sure all his remaining code is neutralized before it causes any more damage. Roberts put his hand on Marcus's shoulder. You've done it again. Every time I think this crisis is over, you find another layer, and every time you solve it. I'm just doing my job. No, you're doing much more than that. Roberts paused. Marcus, I want you to know something. When you started here, I saw you as the man who saved us from an emergency. I thought your value was in crisis management. But watching you work these past few days, I realize I underestimated you. Sir, you're not just good at solving problems. You're good at understanding them. You see connections that other people miss. You think 3 steps ahead. That's not crisis management, that's leadership. Marcus didn't know how to respond. I'm restructuring the IT department, Roberts continued. Peter Chen is being moved to a consulting role. I want you to take over as Chief Technology Officer. Marcus's heart stopped. CTO James? I've been here 4 days. And in those 4 days, you've done more to protect this company than anyone in the past 4 years. I don't care how long you've been here. I care about what you can do. I need to think about this. Of course. Take the weekend. But Marcus, I hope you'll say yes. This company needs someone like you at the top. Someone who sees problems clearly and solves them decisively. Someone who isn't afraid to speak truth to power. That night, Marcus picked up Maya himself for the first time all week. She ran to him across the schoolyard, her backpack bouncing against her shoulders. Daddy, you're here. He caught her and swung her around. I told you I'd make it today. Mrs. Rodriguez said you were saving the world. Not the world, just a company. Same thing. Maya took his hand as they walked to the car. Daddy, can we get ice cream again? We just had ice cream on Monday. That was 4 whole days ago, and you missed my spelling test. How did you do on your spelling test? I got an A. Mrs. Patterson said I was the only one who spelled necessary right. That's my girl. Okay, ice cream it is. They drove to the same place they'd gone on Monday. Maya ordered chocolate again. Marcus got vanilla. Daddy, are you going to be busy forever now? Marcus looked at his daughter's concerned face. No, baby. This week was special. There was an emergency at work that I had to help fix, but it's almost over now. Promise. Promise. And Maya, I need to tell you something. My boss offered me a very important job today, an even bigger job than the one I just started. That's good, right? It's very good, but it might mean more responsibility, more work sometimes. I wanted to ask you what you think. Maya considered this seriously, her ice cream dripping down her cone. Will you still pick me up from school? As much as I can, yes. Will you still read me bedtime stories? Every night. Will we still have ice cream dates? Always. Maya nodded. Then you should take the big job, because you're the smartest daddy in the world, and they should know that. Marcus laughed and wiped ice cream from her chin. You're something else, you know that. I know. Mrs. Rodriguez tells me all the time. That night, after Maya was asleep, Marcus sat on his couch and thought about the offer. CTO of TechFlow Solutions. 1 week ago, he had been unemployed, desperate, watching his savings disappear while company after company rejected him. Now he was being offered one of the most powerful positions in a major technology firm. The universe had a strange sense of humor. His phone buzzed. A text from Kevin. Heard about the CTO offer. You'd be crazy not to take it. Also, security traced David Chen. He's been arrested in Oregon. Just thought you'd want to know. Marcus stared at the message. David Chen was in custody. The threat was over. The crisis was resolved. And now a new chapter was beginning. He thought about what Roberts had said, about leadership, about seeing problems clearly, about not being afraid to speak truth to power. He thought about Maya, who believed he could do anything. He thought about Mrs. Rodriguez, who had helped him survive the darkest months of his life. He thought about all the single parents out there struggling to balance work and family, being told they weren't committed enough, weren't dedicated enough, weren't valuable enough. Maybe it was time to prove them all wrong, not just for himself, but for everyone like him. Marcus picked up his phone and called Roberts. James, it's Marcus. Sorry for calling so late. No problem. I wasn't sleeping anyway. Too much on my mind. I've made my decision about the CTO position. There was a pause. And I'll take it, on one condition. Name it. I want to implement a company-wide policy on work-life balance. Real flexibility for employees with families. No more penalizing people for having responsibilities outside of work. And I want to lead by example, showing that you can be a great leader and a great parent at the same time. Roberts was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was warm. Marcus, I wouldn't have it any other way. Welcome to the executive team. After hanging up, Marcus walked to Maya's room and watched her sleep. 1 week ago, he had been ready to give up, ready to accept that the world would never give him a fair chance. Now, he was in a position to change things, not just for himself, but for others. He could create policies that would help people like him. He could prove that the assumptions companies made about single parents were wrong. He could be the example he had needed when he was struggling alone. We did it, baby girl, he whispered. We really did it. Maya stirred in her sleep, smiled, and clutched her rabbit tighter. And for the first time in 6 months, Marcus felt truly at peace. 1 year later, Marcus stood at the podium of the National Technology Leadership Conference, looking out at an audience of 3,000 people. His hands weren't shaking. His voice wasn't uncertain. He had come a long way from the man who had sat in a parking lot watching his 16th rejection unfold through glass windows. Thank you all for being here today, he began. I was asked to speak about innovation in corporate leadership, but I want to talk about something else first. I want to talk about the day I almost gave up. The audience went quiet. 1 year ago, I was unemployed. I had been rejected by 16 companies in 6 months. I was a single father with a 7-year-old daughter watching my savings disappear, wondering how I was going to keep a roof over our heads. He paused, letting the words sink in. And then I got rejected one more time. By a company called TechFlow Solutions. They told me I wasn't suitable because I had a child, because my family obligations might interfere with my commitment to the job. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. What happened next changed my life. But more importantly, it changed how I think about talent, about potential, about the assumptions we make when we evaluate people. Marcus clicked to the next slide. A photo of Maya appeared on the screen behind him, her school picture from last year, gap-toothed smile and all. This is my daughter Maya. She's 8 years old now, and she's the reason I'm standing here today. He told them the story, the interview, the rejection, the crisis he had watched unfold from his car, the decision to walk back in and offer help to people who had just told him he wasn't good enough. I could have driven away, Marcus said. I had every right to. They had rejected me. They had questioned my worth. Why should I help them? He looked out at the audience. But that's not how Maya raised me. Laughter rippled through the crowd. I'm serious. My daughter taught me something that day. She had given me a card that morning. A good luck card for my interview. Inside, she had written, "My daddy is the best." She believed in me completely, unconditionally, even when I didn't believe in myself. Marcus's voice caught slightly. When I sat in that parking lot watching TechFlow fall apart, I thought about that card. I thought about what Maya would do if she saw someone struggling with a problem. She would help, without hesitation, without wondering whether they deserved it. So I went back in. Not because I wanted to prove something, not because I was trying to get hired, but because helping people who need it is the right thing to do. Even when they've hurt you, even when they don't deserve it. He clicked to the next slide. The TechFlow logo appeared. The rest of the story some of you already know. I fixed their system problem in 3 minutes. I was hired on the spot. Within a week, I had been promoted to CTO. Today, TechFlow Solutions is one of the most successful technology companies in the country. Applause began, but Marcus held up his hand. But that's not the point of this story. The point is, what happened after? He clicked again. The slide showed statistics, hiring data, retention rates, employee satisfaction scores. When I became CTO, I made a commitment. I told James Roberts that I would only take the job if I could change how the company treated employees with families. No more penalizing people for having children. No more assuming that parents are less committed than single employees. Real flexibility. Real support. In the past year, we've implemented parental leave policies that lead the industry. We've created flexible working arrangements that allow people to be present for their families without sacrificing their careers. We've trained our hiring managers to evaluate candidates based on skills and experience, not assumptions about their personal lives. He clicked to the next slide. More statistics. The results speak for themselves. Employee retention is up 40%. Productivity has increased by 25%. Our best talent isn't leaving for competitors anymore because they know TechFlow values them as whole people, not just workers. Marcus stepped away from the podium and walked to the edge of the stage. But here's what the statistics don't show. They don't show the single mother who was able to attend her son's graduation because her manager trusted her to make up the work later. They don't show the father who was present for his daughter's surgery because his company understood that family emergencies happen. They don't show the parents who no longer have to choose between being good at their jobs and being good at raising their children. He looked directly at the audience. I was almost one of those statistics. A talented professional rejected because of outdated assumptions. If I hadn't walked back into that building, if I hadn't been given a second chance, I would have become just another number. Another person who fell through the cracks because the system wasn't designed for people like me. That's why I'm here today. Not to celebrate my success, but to challenge every leader in this room to examine their own assumptions. To ask themselves, how many talented people have we rejected because of bias we weren't even aware of? How many potential stars have we lost because we couldn't see past their personal circumstances? Marcus returned to the podium. Maya is 8 years old now. She's in 3rd grade. She still believes her daddy is the smartest man in the world. And every day I try to live up to that belief. Not by being perfect, not by having all the answers, but by being present. By being kind, by helping people who need it even when it's hard. He smiled. She still asks about getting a dog, by the way. Every single day. Laughter rolled through the audience. And last month we finally got one, a rescue from the local shelter. Maya named her Lucky. He clicked to the final slide. A photo of Maya hugging a small brown dog, both of them grinning at the camera. Lucky because she was rescued when she needed it most. Lucky because she found a family that would love her unconditionally. Lucky because sometimes the universe gives you exactly what you need exactly when you need it. Marcus looked out at the sea of faces. 1 year ago, I was a single father with no job, no prospects, and no hope. Today, I'm the CTO of a company that's changing how businesses think about family and work. I'm a father to a daughter who still believes in me completely. And I'm standing on this stage telling you that anything is possible if you refuse to give up. He straightened his shoulders. So that's my challenge to you. Don't give up. On yourselves. On the people who need you. On the belief that things can get better. Because they can. I'm living proof. The audience rose to their feet. The applause was thunderous. Marcus stood at the podium absorbing the moment. 1 year ago, he couldn't have imagined this. Any of this. But Maya had believed in him. And that had made all the difference. After the speech, Marcus was surrounded by people wanting to shake his hand, ask questions, share their own stories. A woman in her 40s told him about being rejected from jobs because she had 3 children. A young man described watching his single mother struggle to balance work and family. An executive admitted that his company had the same biased hiring practices Marcus had described and asked how to change them. Marcus talked to each of them, listened to their stories, offered whatever advice he could. By the time he finally extracted himself from the crowd, it was nearly 7 p.m. His phone showed 3 missed calls from Mrs. Rodriguez and a text message. Maya is asking when you're coming home. She says Lucky misses you. She misses you too, but won't admit it. Marcus smiled and typed back, "On my way. Tell her to get the ice cream ready." The drive home took 45 minutes. Marcus spent it thinking about the past year, the changes at TechFlow, the policies he had implemented, the people whose lives had been affected. It wasn't perfect. There were still challenges, still people who resisted change, still moments when the old biases crept back in and had to be confronted. But progress was being made, slowly, steadily, one decision at a time. When Marcus pulled into the parking lot of his new apartment building, a nicer place in a better neighborhood with a small yard where Lucky could play, Maya was already waiting at the window. He could see her face pressed against the glass watching for his car. The moment he stepped out, she was running toward him. "Daddy, how was your speech? Did they clap?" Marcus caught her and lifted her up. They clapped. Standing ovation. Standing ovation. Maya pumped her fist. "I knew it. I told Mrs. Rodriguez you would get a standing ovation." "You did?" "Of course, because you're the best speaker in the world." "Duh." Marcus laughed and carried her inside. Mrs. Rodriguez was in the kitchen putting the finishing touches on dinner. "Welcome home, Mr. Famous Speaker. I saw some clips online. Very impressive." "You watched my speech." Maya insisted. "She made me stream it on my phone." Mrs. Rodriguez smiled. "You made me cry, you know. That part about being present for your children. I thought about my own kids, how hard it was to balance everything when they were young. I meant every word." "I know you did. That's why it hit so hard." Maya tugged at his sleeve. "Daddy, you promised ice cream." "I did promise ice cream, but only after dinner." "Mrs. Rodriguez made pasta. Your favorite." Marcus looked at his neighbor, the woman who had become family over the past year. "You didn't have to do that." "I wanted to celebrate. It's not every day someone I know gives a speech to 3,000 people." They sat down to dinner together, the 3 of them, plus Lucky, who begged for scraps under the table. Maya talked non-stop about her day at school, about the art project she was working on, about how Lucky had learned to shake hands. Marcus listened to every word. This was what mattered. Not the speeches, not the promotions, not the salary. This. After dinner, they had ice cream in the living room. Maya insisted on chocolate as always. Marcus got vanilla as always. Mrs. Rodriguez declined, saying she was watching her sugar, but accepted a small bowl when Maya looked at her with pleading eyes. "Daddy, can I ask you something?" "Anything, baby." "In your speech today, you talked about the day you almost gave up. Was that true?" Marcus set down his ice cream. "Yes, sweetheart, it was true." "But you didn't give up." "No, I didn't. Because of me." Marcus pulled his daughter close. "Because of you. Because you believed in me even when I didn't believe in myself. Your card, the one you made me that morning, I still have it. I keep it in my desk at work." "Really? Really?" Every time I have a hard day, I look at it, and I remember that my daughter thinks I'm the best daddy in the world, and that makes me want to try harder." Maya was quiet for a moment. Then she looked up at him with serious eyes. "Daddy, I want to tell you something." "What is it?" "I know it was hard, when you didn't have a job. I know you were scared." Marcus felt his throat tighten. "You knew. I heard you talking to Mrs. Rodriguez sometimes. When you thought I was asleep, you sounded really worried." "I'm sorry, baby. I didn't want you to worry." "I wasn't worried." Maya shook her head. "I knew you would figure it out, because you always figure things out. That's what daddies do." Marcus couldn't speak. His daughter, his 7-year-old daughter at the time, had understood more than he realized, and instead of being frightened, she had chosen to believe in him. "Maya, you're the bravest person I know." "No, Daddy, you're the bravest person. You went back into that building even though they were mean to you. That's really brave." Marcus held her tighter. "I learned it from you." Mrs. Rodriguez quietly excused herself, claiming she needed to check on something at her apartment. Marcus knew she was giving them privacy for this moment. "Daddy." "Yes, baby. I'm really proud of you." "I'm really proud of you too, sweetheart." "I know, but I wanted to say it. Because sometimes people don't say the important stuff, and then it's too late." Marcus pulled back and looked at his daughter. Where had she learned to be so wise? At 8 years old, she understood things that many adults never figured out. "You're right," he said. "We should always say the important stuff. So here's something important. I love you more than anything in this world. You're the reason I get up every morning. You're the reason I work hard. You're the reason I never give up." Maya smiled her gap-toothed smile. "I love you too, Daddy, more than chocolate ice cream." That's a lot of love. The most love. That night after Maya was asleep, and Lucky was curled up at the foot of her bed, Marcus sat on his couch and opened his laptop. His email inbox was flooded with messages from the conference, people thanking him for his speech, executives asking for advice on implementing family-friendly policies, journalists requesting interviews. One email caught his attention. It was from a woman named Patricia Williams. "Mr. Johnson, I watched your speech today, and I cried the entire time. I am a single mother of twins. I was rejected from 11 jobs last year because companies felt my children made me too risky. Today, I was about to give up. I had an interview scheduled for tomorrow, and I was going to cancel it because I couldn't face another rejection. But after hearing your story, I've decided to go. I don't know if I'll get the job, but I'm not going to let them win without a fight. Thank you for reminding me that my children are my strength, not my weakness. Thank you for giving me hope." Marcus read the email 3 times. Then he hit reply. "Patricia, thank you for sharing your story with me. Please don't give up. The right company will see your value. And if they don't, it's their loss, not yours. Your children are lucky to have a mother who fights for them. That fighting spirit is exactly what employers should want. Go to that interview tomorrow. Show them who you are. And whatever happens, remember, you are not alone. There are people out there who understand, who have been where you are, who are rooting for you. I'm one of them. Please let me know how it goes." He sent the email and closed his laptop. This was why he had told his story. Not for applause, not for recognition, but for people like Patricia, people who were struggling, people who needed to know that it could get better. The next morning, Marcus dropped Maya off at school himself. He had a meeting at 9:00, but he had learned to prioritize these moments. "Have a great day, baby. I'll pick you up at 3:30. Promise?" "Promise." Maya kissed his cheek and ran toward the school entrance. Then she stopped, turned back and shouted across the schoolyard, "Love you, Daddy!" Other parents turned to look. A few smiled. One father, a man Marcus had seen at several school events, gave him a thumbs up. Marcus waved at Maya and drove to work. The meeting at 9:00 was with his leadership team. They were reviewing quarterly results, planning for the next fiscal year, discussing new initiatives. The family support program has exceeded all expectations, Sarah Mitchell reported. We've had 0 complaints from employees about work-life balance issues. Retention is at an all-time high. That's great news, Marcus said, but I want us to push further. What about expanding the program to include elder care support? A lot of our employees have aging parents who need assistance. We've been researching options, Kevin Park said. He had been promoted twice in the past year and was now one of Marcus's most trusted advisors. There are several companies that offer subsidized elder care services. We could partner with them. Let's make it happen. I want a proposal on my desk by Friday. The meeting continued for another hour. By the time it ended, Marcus had approved 3 new employee support initiatives, greenlit a technology upgrade that would improve system security, and authorized a training program for hiring managers on unconscious bias. It was a good morning's work. At noon, his assistant knocked on his door. "Mr. Johnson, you have a visitor. She says her name is Patricia Williams." Marcus looked up in surprise. "Send her in." A woman in her mid-30s entered his office. She looked nervous, but determined. "Mr. Johnson, I'm sorry to show up without an appointment, but I had to thank you in person." "Patricia, please sit down. How did your interview go?" Her face broke into a smile. "I got the job." Marcus felt a surge of joy. "That's wonderful, congratulations." "It was because of you, because of your speech. I went into that interview with confidence. I told them about my children. I didn't hide it. I said that being a mother had made me stronger, more organized, more determined, and they listened. They listened because you showed them your worth. You did that, not me. But you gave me the courage to try." Patricia's eyes were wet. "I want you to know that I'm going to pay it forward. Whenever I see someone struggling the way I was, I'm going to share your story. I'm going to tell them that it can get better, that there are people out there who understand." Marcus stood and extended his hand. "That's exactly what I hoped would happen. One person at a time, we can change the way the world thinks about working parents." Patricia shook his hand firmly. "Thank you, Mr. Johnson, for everything." After she left, Marcus sat quietly for a moment. Patricia's visit had meant more to him than all the applause at yesterday's conference. This was real impact, real change, one life at a time. His phone buzzed, a text from Maya. "Daddy, I got an A on my math test. Can we celebrate with ice cream?" Marcus laughed and typed back, "Absolutely. I'll pick you up at 3:30. Love you." "Love you more," came the reply. Marcus looked at the text, then at the photo on his desk, Maya and Lucky, on the day they had brought the dog home. His daughter was grinning, the dog was licking her face, and the joy in the image was palpable. 1 year ago, he had been a man without hope, a father who couldn't provide for his child, a professional who had been told 16 times that he wasn't good enough. Now he was CTO of a successful company, a leader who was changing industry practices, a father who could give his daughter everything she needed, not just material things, but time, attention, presence. And it had all started because he refused to walk away from a problem, because his daughter believed in him, because helping others, even when they don't deserve it, is always the right thing to do. Marcus picked up the phone and called Mrs. Rodriguez. "Hey, it's Marcus. I know it's last minute, but would you like to join us for ice cream tonight? Maya got an A on her math test, and we're celebrating." "I would love that. Should I bring Lucky?" "Definitely bring Lucky. Maya will want to share her ice cream with her." "You spoil that dog." "I spoil everyone I love. It's kind of my thing now." Mrs. Rodriguez laughed. "I'll see you at 6. Marcus hung up and looked out his window at the city below. Somewhere out there, a single parent was struggling, wondering if things would ever get better, feeling like the world was against them. He wished he could tell them all, "Don't give up. Your children are watching. They believe in you, even when you don't believe in yourself. And sometimes the moment when everything seems darkest is the moment right before everything changes. That had been his story, and now it was part of something bigger. A message spreading from person to person, a proof that talent and love could overcome prejudice and assumption. Marcus thought about the interview room 1 year ago, the condescending questions, the dismissive glances, the assumption that his daughter made him less valuable. Those people had been wrong. So completely, utterly wrong. Maya hadn't made him less valuable. She had made him unstoppable. Because when you're fighting for someone you love, you find strength you never knew you had. You push through barriers that would stop anyone else. You refuse to accept defeat because defeat isn't an option. That was the real lesson of his story. Not that hard work pays off, though it does. Not that talent eventually gets recognized, though it can. But that love is the most powerful force in the universe. That fighting for your family gives you a reason to keep going when everything else says stop. Maya had given him that reason, and he would spend the rest of his life living up to her faith in him. At 3:25, Marcus walked out of TechFlow Solutions and headed for his car. He had a daughter to pick up, ice cream to buy, a dog to spoil, a life to live. Behind him, the building stood tall against the afternoon sky. The same building that had rejected him 1 year ago. The same building where everything had changed. He didn't look back. There was no need to look back anymore. The future was ahead of him, and it was brighter than he had ever dared to imagine. Marcus Johnson had been rejected, dismissed, and told he wasn't good enough. And he had proven them all wrong, not by giving up. Not by becoming bitter, but by being exactly who he was, a father, a fighter, a man who never stopped believing that things could get better. 1 year ago, a little girl had written 4 words on a piece of construction paper. "My daddy is the best." Today, the whole world knew she was right.